Have you ever walked into someone's home and left feeling worse than when you arrived? As we age, why does it feel like our time and peace are under constant negotiation? What if simply choosing who you visit could protect your happiness and emotional well-being? As we grow older, our time and energy become more valuable than ever. It's no longer just about being polite or generous with our presence. It's about being intentional with where and with whom we spend our precious moments. The reality is, even if you have more free time in retirement, not every invitation is worth accepting. Some visits come at the expense of your peace, your confidence, and even your joy. You deserve to be in spaces where you're truly seen, heard, and appreciated, where respect and kindness are the norms, not exceptions. In this video, we're diving into 5 types of people whose homes you may want to reconsider visiting as you get older. This isn't just about dodging a few awkward conversations. Each example represents a deeper pattern, one that can slowly wear away at your emotional strength and sense of well-being. From those who always have something negative to say, to those who leave you feeling emotionally depleted or subtly disrespected, you'll begin to see how preserving your peace can start with one conscious decision: being selective about where you go and who you allow into your circle. Stay with us until the end, because these insights might just shift how you approach your social life and help you create more moments of warmth, kindness, and genuine connection. It's not about cutting people off. It's about placing your trust in relationships that uplift, not exhaust. Let's begin. Number 1. People who constantly criticize or belittle you. One of the clearest signs that visiting someone's home may not be worth it is if that person frequently puts you down or makes you feel small. Sometimes the criticism is subtle, hidden behind a fake smile or a passive-aggressive comment. Other times, it's more direct, disguised as just being honest or trying to help. But the result is the same. You leave feeling less than, questioning your worth, or carrying unnecessary emotional weight. Sometimes, these remarks come disguised as playful teasing or light-hearted jokes. But over time, those little comments begin to pile up. They don't just bounce off, they linger. Slowly, they chip away at your self-esteem, leaving you more uncertain, more hesitant, and less confident than you were before you even walked through the door. It could be comments about your clothes, the way you speak, your daily choices, your age, or even your capabilities. On the surface, they may seem harmless, just passing words. But underneath, they leave lasting scars, causing you to second-guess yourself, your decisions, and your worth. As we grow older, taking care of our emotional well-being becomes just as vital as caring for our physical health. And being around people who quietly tear us down, even with a smile, is something we should no longer brush aside or excuse. We all deserve friendships that lift us up, conversations that energize us, and environments that feel safe and welcoming. If someone consistently makes you feel like you're not enough, or like you're constantly being judged or compared, it's time to consider the emotional toll of maintaining that connection. Let me share a story that brings this idea home. My friend Barbara, now 73, opened up to me about a longtime friend she had known for decades. Whenever Barbara visited this woman's home, she often left feeling low, uneasy, even a little sad. But she couldn't quite figure out why. Over time, it became clear. The problem was in the constant, subtle critiques, comments about Barbara's cooking, little digs at her hairstyle, or snide remarks about how she chose to spend her time. Though her friend insisted it was all just joking or meant as helpful advice, the effect wasn't humorous or helpful. Instead, Barbara was left with a lingering sense of inadequacy, like she never quite measured up. Eventually, she made a decision, one that changed everything. Barbara began to limit those visits and chose instead to spend time in places where she felt valued, appreciated, and genuinely at ease. The shift in Barbara's mood and self-esteem was undeniable. She felt lighter, more cheerful, and much more at peace. Her story is a powerful reminder that criticism, even when wrapped in jokes or delivered under the pretense of friendship, is still criticism, and its emotional impact can be far more damaging than we admit. What's important to remember is this: genuine friends never need to bring you down in order to lift themselves up. Healthy relationships are rooted in mutual respect, encouragement, and authentic appreciation. When you spend time in homes where these qualities are present, you leave feeling energized, seen, and supported. You don't walk away second-guessing yourself or feeling smaller than before. That's the difference between a nourishing environment and a toxic one. Being selective about whose home you choose to enter isn't about being selfish. It's a reflection of self-awareness and self-respect. It's an acknowledgement that your time, energy, and emotional wellness matter. As we grow older, it becomes even more important to invest in relationships that feed our spirit. After all, the years ahead are fewer than those behind us, and each moment is more valuable than ever. Spending time in negative, judgmental spaces robs you of joy, laughter, and the kind of companionship that truly matters. If you find yourself leaving certain homes feeling drained, insecure, or questioning your worth, that's not something to ignore. It's a signal, a gentle but firm nudge from within, that something needs to change. You have every right to protect your emotional well-being. You have every right to curate a social circle that uplifts you rather than tears you down. Sometimes, that means setting clear boundaries. Other times, it means quietly stepping back from relationships that no longer serve your peace. This isn't about creating conflict. It's about making conscious choices to spend your days around people who value you, speak to you with kindness, and reflect back the respect you deserve. Avoiding homes where you're consistently criticized doesn't mean you're cutting yourself off from the world. It means you're making space for healthier, more rewarding connections. And once you start making those intentional choices, you'll likely notice a shift, not just in your mood, but in how empowered and grounded you feel. You'll begin to rediscover the quiet joy of simply being around people who love you for who you are. Number 2, people who always ask for favors but never offer support in return. Another home you may want to reconsider visiting is one that belongs to someone who frequently asks for help, support, or your time, but rarely offers the same in return. On the surface, these kinds of situations might not seem like a big deal. A quick favor here, a little help there. But over time, those small requests begin to stack up. What once felt like a friendly gesture can start to feel like an expectation. Before long, you may begin to feel more like someone's go-to helper than a valued friend. And that shift, even if subtle, can weigh heavily, especially as we grow older and become more mindful of how we spend our time and energy. It's only natural to want to be helpful. Most of us genuinely enjoy lending a hand when we can. Generosity is a beautiful quality and an essential part of maintaining meaningful relationships. But when that generosity becomes one-sided, it doesn't feel so beautiful anymore. Instead, it drains your emotional reserves. You begin to feel tired, unappreciated, and maybe even a little used. Take my friend Robert, for example. He's 76 now, kind-hearted, and always willing to help. For years, he made regular visits to the home of an old acquaintance named Jim. Every time Robert went over, there was something Jim needed help with: fixing a leaking faucet, lifting heavy boxes, or taking care of his yard. Robert gladly helped, believing it was part of being a good friend. But over time, Robert began to notice something. Whenever he asked Jim for a favor in return, nothing major, just a ride to a medical appointment or a little help at home, Jim always had an excuse. He was busy, unavailable, or simply brushed it off. At first, Robert told himself not to keep score. Friendships, he thought, shouldn't be transactional. But the more this pattern repeated, the more drained he felt after each visit. Eventually, it became impossible to ignore. The relationship no longer felt mutual. Robert realized that while he had been showing up with kindness and effort, the same energy was not being returned. And that imbalance left him feeling not just physically tired, but emotionally depleted. Coming to this realization wasn't easy. It required Robert to be honest with himself, to admit that even long-standing connections need to be reevaluated from time to time. Especially as we age, relationships built on mutual care and support are not just nice to have. They're essential. When friendships are balanced, giving feels good because you trust that kindness flows both ways. But when that balance disappears, you begin to feel taken for granted. And recognizing that doesn't mean ending the relationship completely. Instead, it's about adjusting your boundaries and being more mindful of how much time and energy you're willing to invest. Because as we get older, those resources, our emotional strength, our time, and our physical energy, become more limited and infinitely more valuable. The older we get, the more we realize just how precious our time and energy really are. Every interaction, every visit, every moment we give to someone else carries weight. That's why it becomes so important to choose wisely, who we spend time with, and where we choose to go. Being helpful and kind is a beautiful part of who you are. But it's equally important that your kindness is not only appreciated, but also returned. Your generosity should never be a one-way street. When you're in relationships that truly honor your presence, you can feel it. Your goodwill is received with warmth, mutual care, and even small gestures of support in return. But if you find yourself walking away from certain homes feeling emotionally depleted or unacknowledged, it may be time to reflect on the true nature of that connection. Sometimes the imbalance is subtle, but it adds up, and you deserve better. It can start with something simple: setting kind, respectful boundaries. It's perfectly okay to say no when a request feels overwhelming, or to gently suggest another option for how someone might get the help they need. These moments aren't acts of rejection, they're acts of self-respect. When you communicate your limits with clarity and kindness, you're opening the door to more equal and sustainable relationships. Establishing these boundaries might feel uncomfortable at first, especially if you've always seen yourself as someone who's dependable, generous, or always willing to help. But taking this step isn't about closing yourself off. It's about ensuring that your time and effort are going to people and places that value you. Over time, this shift helps foster relationships that feel more balanced, uplifting, and genuine. Choosing not to visit homes where your generosity is repeatedly exploited might feel unfamiliar, even difficult. But in truth, it's a powerful decision, one that protects your emotional well-being and affirms your worth. It's a quiet reminder to yourself and to others that your kindness is not to be taken for granted. You deserve to feel appreciated, supported, and valued just as much as you offer those things to others. If you've been nodding along while watching, and this message has resonated with you, go ahead and type number 2 in the comments below. I'd love to know you're still here with me. And if you haven't subscribed yet, now's a good time to do it. Tap that bell so you won't miss any of our upcoming videos. Your support means the world and helps us continue creating helpful, inspiring content just for you. Number 3. People who make you feel unwelcome or burdensome. One unmistakable sign that it may be time to stop visiting someone's home is the feeling that you're not truly wanted there, or worse, that your presence is a problem. If you consistently walk away from someone's home feeling like an outsider or an inconvenience, it's time to pause and reflect. It can be hard to believe that close friends, or even family, would ever intentionally make us feel unwelcome. But the reality is, it often doesn't happen through overt words. It happens in subtle gestures, unspoken cues, and small behaviors that add up over time. Maybe you've noticed they glance at the clock too often when you're speaking. Maybe they let out an audible sigh when you arrive, or offer a quick, distracted hello without genuine warmth. Perhaps they rush the conversation, keep you standing instead of offering a seat, or repeatedly mention how overwhelmed they are with work or errands. On the surface, these may seem like minor details, but their combined effect can leave you with a deep and lingering sense that your presence is more of a burden than a blessing. What makes this even more painful is when it comes from people you've known and trusted for years, those you believed would always welcome you with open arms. Long-standing relationships carry deep emotional roots, and when those connections begin to feel strained or distant, it cuts deeper than a casual acquaintance ever could. At any age, but especially as we grow older, we all deserve to feel truly seen, respected, and embraced, especially when we make the effort to visit someone else's space. The feeling of belonging isn't just nice to have. It plays a crucial role in our overall happiness, emotional security, and even physical well-being. Recognizing these signs of emotional distance isn't easy, but it's essential if you want to preserve your dignity and mental health. Take, for example, my friend Shirley, who recently turned 78. For many years, she made regular visits to her younger sister Joan's home. In the beginning, those gatherings were joyful, filled with shared stories, warm meals, and laughter that lingered long after the visit ended. But slowly, something began to shift. Joan started acting different, rushed, preoccupied, sometimes even a little short-tempered. She'd mention how behind she was on chores or how stressed she felt with her schedule. At first, Shirley thought it was her fault. Maybe she was dropping by at the wrong time. Maybe she stayed too long. To avoid being a bother, she began shortening her visits, making sure not to take up too much time. Still, the unease lingered. No matter how brief the visits became, Shirley couldn't shake the feeling that she wasn't truly welcome anymore. And that realization didn't come all at once. It crept in slowly, until it became undeniable. The joy she once felt from those sisterly visits had faded, replaced by anxiety, self-doubt, and emotional discomfort. After giving it a lot of thought, Shirley came to a difficult but empowering conclusion: something had to change. She chose to speak honestly with Joan, sharing how these repeated moments had left her feeling unwelcome and emotionally uneasy. To Shirley's relief, Joan was genuinely surprised. She hadn't realized how her behavior had been perceived and expressed heartfelt regret. That one open and vulnerable conversation turned out to be a turning point. It allowed both sisters to reconnect and rebuild the warmth they once shared. But of course, not every situation ends on such a positive note. Sometimes people are truly unaware of how their actions come across, and a gentle conversation can open the door to better understanding and deeper connection. Other times, though, even after you've spoken up with clarity and kindness, the same behavior continues. The dismissiveness, the distance, the subtle cues that you're not really wanted, they persist. In those cases, it becomes necessary to make a difficult but important decision. If someone continues to make you feel like an outsider despite your efforts to communicate, it's a clear signal that something needs to shift. Reducing your visits, or even stepping back entirely, isn't about resentment. It's about preserving your sense of self and choosing relationships that nourish your spirit. Feeling like a burden is something none of us should silently endure, no matter our age. Emotional discomfort is not just a fleeting inconvenience. It can deeply affect your confidence, your mood, and your quality of life. Your well-being, your comfort, and your sense of worth are just as important today as they were when you were younger. Perhaps even more so, because now you're wise enough to know what truly matters. Knowing that you have the right to be treated with care and dignity is a powerful realization. And from that awareness comes a quiet strength, the courage to choose relationships that feel safe, warm, and accepting. It's more than okay, it's necessary to prioritize the spaces and people where you feel genuinely welcomed and valued. When you make that choice intentionally, you'll begin to build stronger, more fulfilling bonds. You'll create a circle of connection that feels enriching rather than draining. Being surrounded by people who truly enjoy your presence doesn't just brighten your day, it elevates your life. It brings more peace, more joy, and a deeper sense of belonging. And yes, these mindful decisions might be uncomfortable at first, especially when they involve people you've known for a long time. But the reward is a more peaceful, emotionally healthy life, one filled with real connection and mutual respect. Even when it involves people you've known and cherished for many years, protecting your dignity and self-respect should always come first. And while these choices may be tough in the short term, they inevitably lead to more joyful, meaningful experiences in the long run. Number 4, people who gossip or spread rumors. Another kind of environment you might want to avoid is one where gossip flows freely, where people regularly engage in whispering about others, spreading rumors, or making judgments behind someone's back. On the surface, it might appear harmless, After all, who hasn't indulged in a little neighborhood news from time to time? It can even seem entertaining, a casual way to connect or share the latest updates. But gossip, even when it starts off light or playful, can quickly take on a darker tone. What seems like simple chatter can quietly become a breeding ground for negativity, mistrust, and unnecessary drama. These conversations may not involve you directly, but simply being present in that atmosphere can leave you feeling uneasy, conflicted, and even complicit in something that doesn't align with your values. As we grow older, protecting our peace of mind becomes more important than ever. Our emotional well-being should be treated as sacred, and spending time in spaces that erode that peace, even subtly, can slowly wear us down in ways we don't always recognize right away. Let me share the story of my friend Margaret, who is now 71. For several years, she frequently visited her neighbor Helen, a woman well known in the community for being warm, inviting, and always ready with a pot of tea. At first, Margaret looked forward to their chats. They gave her a sense of belonging, a way to stay connected to the happenings around her. But gradually, something began to shift. Margaret started noticing a pattern. Helen's conversations almost always centered around other people. She talked about who had done what, who was struggling, who had gained weight, lost money, or had family troubles. What seemed like innocent commentary at first began to take on a sharper edge, more critical, more judgmental. Margaret couldn't ignore how these visits made her feel. There was no malicious intent on her part, yet she often left feeling unsettled, even guilty for listening and not speaking up. The sense of connection she once felt began to feel more like emotional discomfort, and it left her questioning whether she truly belonged in that space. Each time Margaret left Helen's house, she noticed a heaviness she couldn't quite shake. She felt emotionally drained and began to wonder if Helen might be saying similar things about her to others behind her back. That unsettling thought planted a seed of doubt, making Margaret question not just the conversations they were having, but the kind of presence she was keeping. She hadn't meant to be part of anything harmful, yet the weight of those discussions lingered, leaving her with a sense of guilt and unease. Eventually, Margaret made a clear and deliberate decision. She chose to step back. Rather than continuing to participate in those draining visits, she started spending her time in places that lifted her up, spaces filled with warmth, honesty, and more uplifting conversations. These were the kinds of environments where people talked about ideas, shared personal growth, laughed freely, and offered support. Not judgment. What Margaret went through is more common than we often realize. Gossip and rumor sharing may seem harmless in the moment, but they have a way of seeping into our emotional space. The more we're exposed to negativity, especially when it centers around other people's struggles, flaws, or private matters, the more it chips away at our peace. Over time, it can shift the way we think, influence how we feel, and even shape how we see others. You might notice yourself carrying the weight of those conversations home with you. That negative energy doesn't always end when the visit does. It can linger, echoing in your thoughts, and stirring up unnecessary anxiety. You might even start to wonder, if they speak that way about others, what might they be saying about me when I'm not around? What is CED? That kind of suspicion doesn't just hurt your sense of trust, it undermines your emotional safety. Choosing not to visit homes where gossip is the norm doesn't mean you need to create confrontation or tension. In many cases, a quiet shift is enough. You might gently steer conversations toward more positive or meaningful topics, or simply reduce the frequency of your visits. That subtle redirection can speak volumes. Prioritizing relationships that value kindness, authenticity, and mutual respect is one of the most powerful ways to protect your emotional well-being. Especially as we age, our peace of mind becomes something we must actively safeguard. It's no longer about pleasing everyone. It's about honoring yourself by choosing where and how you invest your time and energy. How you choose to spend your time directly shapes the quality of your daily life. Each visit, each conversation, each environment you enter can either nourish your spirit or slowly drain it. That's why it's so important to remember that meaningful relationships are rooted in trust, empathy, and mutual respect. They are not built on whispering behind someone's back or bonding over the misfortunes of others. Healthy friendships and strong family ties should lift you up. They should leave you feeling more joyful, more connected, and more at peace than before. These relationships don't just fill your calendar, they fill your heart. They remind you that you're not alone, that you belong, and that who you are is valued. When you surround yourself with people who consistently demonstrate kindness, integrity, and genuine interest in your well-being, something shifts. You begin to feel lighter, stronger, and more energized. Your emotional energy, something we often take for granted, gets invested in a way that's not only safe, but deeply rewarding. It's never too late to reflect on the influence your social life has on your mental and emotional health. Ask yourself, after visiting certain homes, do I feel uplifted or uncomfortable? Do I leave feeling inspired, or am I left carrying someone else's negativity? That awareness is a powerful first step towards setting healthier boundaries. If you walk away from a visit feeling emotionally compromised or uneasy because of constant gossip, judgment, or criticism, that's a sign worth paying attention to. You deserve better. Interactions that make you feel seen, heard, and respected. You deserve to spend your time with people who truly welcome you, appreciate you, and engage you in ways that matter. Making the intentional choice to spend time in places where you feel emotionally safe and spiritually recharged is one of the most liberating things you can do. When you do, you're not just protecting your peace. You're actively creating a life filled with deeper connection, genuine happiness, and the kind of fulfillment that stays with you long after the visit ends. If you're still with me and these insights have resonated with your experience, go ahead and type number 4 in the comments so I know you're here. And if you haven't already, I encourage you to subscribe and tap the bell icon so you never miss out on more content like this. Your support truly helps us continue creating meaningful videos that both inform and inspire. Number 5. People who dismiss your values or pressure you to go against your beliefs. One of the most critical types of people to be cautious around, especially as you grow older, are those who challenge your core values in ways that leave you feeling diminished or conflicted. One of the clearest signs that visiting someone's home might be more harmful than helpful is when that person consistently dismisses your values or pressures you to act in ways that go against your core beliefs. As we age, our values, principles, and personal convictions become more deeply rooted. They form the foundation of who we are, and honoring them is essential to our emotional and spiritual well-being. Spending time with someone who refuses to respect these parts of you, who mocks, minimizes, or pushes back against what matters most to you, can slowly wear you down. It doesn't always begin with something obvious. Sometimes it starts subtly. A sarcastic remark about a cause you care about, a dismissive joke about your beliefs, or encouragement to take part in something that simply doesn't sit right with you. At first, you might brush these moments aside. Maybe you tell yourself it's not worth making a fuss, or perhaps you assume it wasn't intentional. But when those moments repeat, visit after visit, they begin to carry weight. You find yourself feeling less comfortable, less understood, and less at ease. And over time, these emotional discomforts can start to affect your confidence, your clarity, and even your peace of mind. I think of my friend John, who's now 74. He had a lifelong friend named Frank, and for years their bond was strong, built on memories, shared laughter, and experiences from younger days. But as time passed, something began to shift. John and Frank grew apart, not in affection, but in outlook. Frank had adopted habits and viewpoints that John no longer shared, and during their visits, Frank would often try to persuade John to see things his way. Sometimes it was pressure to voice agreement on things John didn't believe. Other times, it was invitations to join in activities John didn't feel comfortable with. At first, John felt a sense of duty to go along, afraid that saying no might put a strain on their friendship. But every time he gave in, every time he ignored his own discomfort to preserve the peace, he left Frank's house feeling more conflicted, more emotionally depleted, and less like himself. Each time John left Frank's house, he felt a growing sense of frustration and disappointment, not just in the situation, but in himself. He realized that every time he compromised his core values, even slightly, it chipped away at his inner peace. Eventually, it became clear. Maintaining a friendship that repeatedly left him feeling uneasy and conflicted simply wasn't worth the emotional cost. With a steady heart, John decided to speak up. He shared openly with Frank, explaining how those visits were taking a toll on his emotional well-being. At first, Frank didn't take it well. He became defensive, as many people do when confronted with uncomfortable truths. But John knew that expressing his feelings wasn't about accusing. It was about preserving his own integrity. And although the conversation was tough, it was necessary. Over time, John made a conscious choice to invest more energy in relationships that felt safe, respectful, and aligned with his values. He spent more time with friends and family members who didn't just tolerate his beliefs, they supported them, even if they didn't always agree. And in doing so, John found peace. The tension he once carried after certain visits faded. In its place came a deep comfort, the kind that only comes from being around people who truly understand and accept you. This experience was a powerful reminder for John, and it can be for all of us. Choosing not to visit homes where your values are consistently challenged or dismissed isn't stubbornness. It's not isolation. It's an act of profound self-respect. Your values, the things that give your life purpose, meaning, and clarity, are essential to who you are. They deserve to be protected. No one has the right to casually belittle what you believe in or pressure you to compromise what matters most to you. As you get older, this becomes even more important. The calm and peace that come from standing firm in your beliefs are far too valuable to be jeopardized. When you prioritize relationships with people who respect, share, or at least honor your core values, you create a space where your emotional health can thrive. These are the relationships that allow you to be fully yourself, without fear of judgment, without pressure to conform. In these spaces, you feel safe, you feel respected, and you feel seen. Every decision you make to avoid environments that ignore or challenge your deepest values is not just a boundary, it's a step toward a life filled with clarity, confidence, and emotional security. Choosing to protect your values not only preserves your peace, it all reinforces your sense of identity. It gives you confidence and creates the kind of environment where you can genuinely flourish. Of course, setting boundaries, especially in long-standing relationships, can be difficult at first. There's often hesitation, a fear of hurting someone's feelings, or disrupting the dynamic you've known for years. But that discomfort is temporary. The peace that follows is lasting. It's important to remind yourself, people who truly care about you, those who love and respect you, won't ask you to compromise your values. They'll honor your choices without ridicule or resentment. That's what real respect looks like. And your emotional well-being deserves nothing less. Prioritizing your inner peace means recognizing that your happiness and emotional stability are worth protecting, even when doing so involves hard decisions. It means accepting that not every space is meant for you, and that's okay. What matters most is how you feel during and after those interactions. Visiting homes where your beliefs are respected and your voice is heard contributes to a life that feels whole and enriching. These kinds of relationships don't just comfort you in the moment, they build you up over time. They improve your emotional resilience, restore your self-assurance, and remind you that meaningful connection is still possible at every stage of life. As you age, your time and emotional energy become even more precious. They should be spent in places that nurture your soul, not challenge your worth. Choosing respectful, affirming environments isn't about being selective for the sake of it. It's about making intentional decisions that lead to more joy, more fulfillment, and more peace in your later years. So as we bring this video to a close, take a moment to reflect. Are the people you visit helping you feel more like yourself or less? Are your values being honored or pushed aside? Only you can answer that. But whatever your answer, know this: your boundaries are valid, your peace is worth protecting, and your emotional well-being should always come first. Take a moment to reflect on the 5 types of homes we've explored today, spaces that may no longer support your emotional health or align with your well-being. Which one spoke to you most deeply? Was there a certain relationship that quietly drains your energy, leaves you feeling unappreciated, or pushes against your core values in subtle but persistent ways? Recognizing these patterns isn't about blaming others or cutting yourself off from the world. It's about developing a deeper awareness of how different environments impact your peace of mind. And from that awareness comes the power to choose. Choose spaces that honor your dignity, protect your joy, and uplift your spirit. Your emotional well-being, your inner calm, and your sense of fulfillment are invaluable, especially in the later chapters of life. At this stage, every visit, every conversation, every shared moment carries meaning. That's why it's more important than ever to prioritize time with people who truly see you, respect you, and make you feel welcomed and valued. Every time you choose to spend your time in a home where you feel genuinely accepted, your self-confidence grows stronger. Your emotional resilience deepens. You begin to reinforce a life built on kindness, mutual support, and authentic appreciation, one relationship at a time. Thank you so much for spending this time with us today. We'd love to hear your thoughts. In the comments below, let us know one insight that stood out to you and how you might apply it in your own life. Your reflections matter to us, and reading your stories inspires us to keep creating meaningful, helpful content. If you found this video valuable, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who may benefit from it. Your support makes a real difference and helps us continue bringing you thoughtful, empowering content. Wishing you great health, lasting happiness, and a peaceful heart. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel.